how to be sensory friendly in the area of touch, temperature, and texture. Like the other senses, a person may be over-responsive or under-responsive to just touch, just temperature, or just texture, or any combination of the three. So to begin with, let's talk about being over-responsive to touch. A person that is over-responsive to touch, remember, it's like that fire hose of information coming in, so it can be way too much and create an overload. So people that are over-responsive to touch can have a really difficult time with light touch. Light touch can actually be perceived as pain. As a redhead, I've experienced this in just a very small way when I have a sunburn. When people even start to get close to me, I start to feel pain. Even a breeze on my arm can feel like pain. And I think this might be just a little bit of people with the hypersensitivity to touch may feel. That light touch can literally feel like pain or a shock to them. So let's say somebody's walking in a crowded hallway and someone accidentally just brushes against them. That can be perceived as pain, and they may have an automatic reaction that they cannot help because it feels like a shock and pain to their system. So people can be very fearful of crowds and really avoid crowds. People that have hypersensitivity to touch seek control. They want a predictable routine and a predictable schedule, so we can help with that. Also, we want to normalize non-touch greetings, like a wave or an air high five or a thumbs up can be really helpful instead of a handshake or a hug. We also want to offer a non-crowded entrance without a greeter so that they don't have to come in contact with touch just to enter into the building. Another thing to consider is non-crowded seating. Maybe if our chairs are adjustable, we could let them slide a little bit closer to the wall and maybe have a little extra room. Or if it's a pew, we could put Kleenex boxes or Bibles or hymnals in between, so a person literally is not anxious and fearful of someone touching them. You can imagine if you have that kind of anxiety about touch, it's very difficult to pay attention to what's going on in the teaching if I'm worried about someone accidentally touching me. So it's very important. We also want to allow transitions at non-crowded times, and we can offer alternatives to lines, hugs, holding hands, greeting times. For example, maybe let a person that does have to stand in a line be at the front of the line or at the back of the line so they can give themselves a little bit more space. Or if it's a greeting time, can the person just stand at the back until the greeting time is over and then enter the service? Those are things we can think about to make it much more comfortable for the person. Considering textures, if you're over-responsive and getting too much information in concerning textures, then certain foods may be very aversive to a person because of the texture. For example, communion wafers. They can be gritty or almost kind of a papery texture at times, and that can be very aversive to some people that have difficulties with textures. Maybe offer them a cracker or bread or some other alternative instead. Also, fabrics can be really aversive. Dress clothes can be a very difficult thing for a person that is aversive to textures. So we can normalize comfortable clothing at church. So considering temperature, if a person is over-responsive to temperature and too much information is coming in concerning temperature, we might want to provide a drop-off near the building so they're not having to experience those weather and extreme temperatures. We can also allow stocking caps, hoodies, coats year-round, and vice versa, allow summer clothes, shorts in the cold weather. We can also provide lap blankets just in the pews or in the sanctuary or in the classrooms. We can also be very sensitive about baptism. Baptisms can be very difficult for people that have trouble processing touch, temperature, and texture. We want to give them as much control over the baptism as possible, like maybe they can choose the temperature of the water, how they enter the water, and also we might give them a chance to try out the baptism before it actually happens in front of a crowd. And that can be really helpful. We also want to be sensitive about outside events. People that have difficulty regulating temperature may have difficulty with those extremes in temperature. So we want to be understanding about offering alternatives or not insisting that they go out and play on the playground, for example. So what if a person is under responsive to touch, temperature, and texture? Not enough information, not enough cues are coming in from the environment, and they may be seeking input or needing that kind of input for touch and texture. So a person that is craving that kind of sensory input may crave touch, like a lot of hugs and a lot of handshakes and a lot of high fives. They also may not feel their face or their hands well, and they can't tell if their face or hands are dirty. So for example, at meal times, they may need extra napkins or maybe access to a mirror nearby so they can check their face and not be self-conscious about that and be able to enjoy the meal. Also, people that are under-responsive to textures may seek out particular textures. So for example, they may seek out somebody's soft fabric or their hair, so we can offer alternative fidgets that are different textures. For example, things that are squishy or spiky or slick or rough, so they can have alternatives that are appropriate if they are seeking out textures. I'm Charla, your friendly OT, and I would be so happy to consult with you about your specific needs in your church for your ministry events to help your church be sensory friendly.